So, Jen Chapman-Boffin, welcome to the Disenfranchised. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, very good. Living the dream and enjoying all of the sunshine and the perks of working from home. How about yourself?
It is boiling, isn't it? Yeah, I'm torn between getting my windows open and just staying in like a cocoon of colder air.
A cocoon of colder air. Not heard of
Yes,
that before,
true.
but
Me neither.
I like it. It's good. I'm going to say that because the office where I sit in actually is a little bit cooler than anywhere in my house or anywhere else. It's covered by trees and never gets sunshine, so it's now my cocoon of cold
That is
air
your
in here.
cocoon of cold air, yeah.
Fantastic. But Jen, let's get started with the interview then, and I'm going to start with your first job. So, wondering what your first job was.
So my first ever job
Yep.
was working in a gift shop for a train station museum. So not something I'm particularly interested in, I'd like to say, but it was the only place that would hire me at the age of like 14, 15 because it was a charity, so technically it could. So I did that, then moved on to retail while I was at uni.
Yeah, that's probably more of a traditional route than
Yeah.
is it a train station museum?
Yeah, yeah, steam train museum. Yeah,
I guess you got a lot of kids coming through there, or was it all kind of train enthusiasts?
a lot of train
Oh
enthusiasts that
wow.
take it very seriously. But then you would have the occasional Thomas the Tank Engine weekend, which was hectic and great. And I learned to be able to serve tea on a moving steam train. So there we go. Good for something.
And I'm guessing by your tone, you didn't have a massive passion for trains or steam trains.
No, I can't say I did, I'm afraid. Can't say I did.
Well, that's ruined all my questioning from here on out.
Yeah, sorry, let's start again.
No, but okay, so yeah, a typical kind of early career stuff, where you're kind of just finding your feet and finding work to sort of get into that employment world. And you mentioned you was at university then. So what did you study at university?
So originally, I wanted to be a midwife. So I
Okay.
did a placement at my local hospital, did a week following sort of different units of the maternity unit within the hospital, which was incredible. So within my first 10 minutes of being on placement, I saw a baby being born.
Oh wow.
So it was amazing. But I think after that, I just had a real moment of, I don't want to do a degree where I feel like I'm going to be in the same job forever. I mean, since then, I've seen that, midwives have gone into loads of different avenues, but I think I just wanted, at that age, you don't know what you want to do, most people. So I thought, right, everything is a business, whether you're a hospital, whether you're a school, whether it's a shop, it's a business, really, isn't it? So I went ahead and did business management and communications. So
Okay.
I thought that's going to kind of open me up to a bit of everything.
Yeah, definitely. It's I'm not sure where everyone describes having their child as a business though, but yeah,
Yeah,
everything's a
maybe it's a
business.
good maybe it's a good thing I didn't go on to be a midwife.
Yeah, it's scheduled to come at
Yeah,
9:45. It's late.
exactly.
Booking a Calendly appointment or something like that for your
Yeah,
baby.
this is overrun.
But yeah, I always think it's quite admirable people that go into those professions, and yeah, it does almost feel like that's it for the rest of your career. And it must be difficult if someone wants to move out of something like that, a profession like that, even from as being a doctor, what can you go into? You're sort of starting at the ground floor again. So I think it's pretty
Mm.
smart to go in at a a broader level when you're studying, and then you've got plenty of options. So where did
Yeah.
that then lead you? What kind of was the next step for you after the retail and university?
So while I was at university, I worked from retail. I worked in a call center. So again, just uni job to kind of pay my way. Um, And whilst it's not something I would want to do again, it was fantastic in, teaching me communication skills, handling kind of disagreements and things like that. So it was good. And it just so happens that that place that I worked had a whole sort of marketing division. While I was at uni, marketing and communications was kind of the thing that I really loved, that I had the passion for. So I think, looking back, it's probably more the fact that it's got that psychology and the person element in it.
Yeah.
And so when I finished uni, I was fortunate enough to kind of move downstairs into the marketing department, where they also had a franchise. So that was where I kind of got my first taste of franchising.
Right. Okay. So as a business, then what did they do?
So the business did furniture insurance. So again, I stayed with the glamorous
Yeah.
stuff, from trains to furniture insurance. But the franchise itself was doing like professional sort of carpet and upholstery cleaning. So it was like a UK-wide network established like 50 odd years. So it was a fantastic insight really into the world of franchising.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a surprising one. I've not heard or thought of that one either as a as a franchise. It's just a never-ending list, it seems to be, in the franchising world, of different brands and opportunities out there. It never ceases to amaze me. But yeah, furniture insurance and carpet up and upholstery.
Yeah, I must say, actually, I didn't really know a lot about franchising before I kind of went into that role. And afterwards, it just opens your eyes so much, doesn't it? Like, I'd be walking down the high street and pointing out to my partner at the time, "That's a franchise. That's a franchise," and he'd be like, "Oh, shut up."
I still do that now.
Yeah, so do I. And I find it so interesting that, whatever your passion is, there's probably a franchise for it, which I just love.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's like that saying, you're never more than kind of 10 feet away from a franchise, right? It feels like that a lot of the time.
Definitely.
10 feet away from a rat, or whatever. But if we look at it as a franchise, it feels like that to me. But so it's interesting you worked within a franchisor, then perhaps didn't realize it when you joined them. But did you notice there was any kind of different mentality to the business at all, to other businesses you'd work for? Or do you feel like they're just like another normal company?
So the franchise sort of division within the company, I would say that was quite different, because it was very much more, the company was very much more corporate, and kind of the head people at the top made the decisions, but the franchise was so much more kind of inclusive and involving of the network and sort of looking forward. So I would say that was probably the biggest difference, really.
That's interesting. And your role within the franchisor, did you just
So it
have?
was a small, yeah, it was a small head office team, and we had about 50 franchisees. So it was interesting, actually, because it was an all-male network,
Right.
and there was only two of us to begin with at head office, and we were both women. So that was an interesting
Dynamic.
start. Yeah, definitely, because they hadn't ever had that before either. So it was an adjustment. It was an adjustment for them. But yeah, that was my kind of role. We did marketing, but also helped on the operations side, because we were such a small team. It's one of those where, whilst that's your official title, you get on and do a bit of everything. So whether that's, supporting them with business developments, whether it's supporting the training, the recruitment, the annual conferences, it was a bit of everything, the ops manual. So
Yeah.
getting involved in all aspects.
Yeah, I having done the same myself as well, worked in a franchisor. Yeah, you do get involved in some of those other elements and engage with the franchisees, even if your role isn't necessarily directly impacting them. And I think that's something I never realized was out there. And it's quite interesting, because you get to be close to entrepreneurial type people, people that are taking a risk and have gone out there and set up their own business. And I was speaking to somebody else the other day, and I feel like it kind of rubs off and impacts you, because you kind of understand what it's like for other people. And I think it's it's an interesting way to get into being self-employed yourself, is to be around the people that are already doing it. Do you feel the same?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think for someone who's sort of straight out of uni, you know, you're 20 and it's your first proper job,
Yeah.
to be at the heart of a franchise from the franchisor perspective, I don't feel like you could have a better first job, because you're getting that first-hand experience in sort of every area of business, and you learn from people every single day. You know, I know they say you learn something new every day, but I think when you're in the world of franchising, you really do, because you're interacting with so many different people that are all in completely unique circumstances, whether it's different areas of country, different backgrounds, or different, you know, times within their franchise life, their business journey. So you're without a doubt learning something every day. So I think it's kind of the best job you could do straight out.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I'm sure there'll be people out there though that will contest that, and that their job was the best start they
I'm
ever
sure.
had.
I'm sure.
I'm thinking, you know, like working with a Formula One team or something like that, where you're flying around the world.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
that
might
sounds
be.
glamorous, but I know what you mean. I know what you're saying. It's giving you a really good grounding, and despite the non-glamorous nature of the service, actually. And that's another
Yeah.
thing I find interesting is, yeah, I guess I had that. I worked for an expense reduction analyst. Doesn't sound sexy on the outside, but actually when you get into the work, it's fantastically enjoyable, and I learned so much from there in terms of
Yeah.
innovation within the supply chain for companies. And it's a lot more interesting than it sounds on the surface.
Yeah, and I think with franchising, for me anyway, it is so much about the people.
Yes.
So although franchising gives you an amazing opportunity to work in the field and the industry you love, whether it's pets, whether it's sports, whether it's sort of kids clubs, you can, you know, follow your passion with franchising. But regardless of what the industry is, you're working with people, and such diverse people. So I think for me, that's kind of the main buzz of it. It almost doesn't matter what you're doing, it's the people that are doing it.
Yeah, definitely. So after working for this company, and sorry, I don't think we've mentioned the name of them. So could you remind me?
Yeah, of course, it was Safe Clean.
Safe Clean. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
after Safe Clean, where did you move on to from there?
So I had a short experience with Smeg, so the people that make the cool fridges.
Yeah.
Again, had a great experience with them. They're an incredible, you know, iconic brand. Like, again, it sounds like a boring industry because it's essentially kitchen appliances, but you know, what an amazing brand to build up, that people want to get a fridge for their birthday and plaster it all over Instagram. Like that's pretty cool. So I worked as the brand manager for them for a while, which was great. But for me, the kind of the draw was to go back to franchising. I think even after just a few short years, that's kind of the bug.
Yeah. It's funny. Everyone says it. Everyone who's been in the
Yeah,
industry likes to stay there. And I think, like you said earlier, it's the connection with people, isn't it? And
yeah.
there is a great deal of support. So how did you get back into the industry then?
So I actually had been having chats with Pip, from the head of the BFA, and we got in touch again, and she needed a bit of support from for her role, because she's so busy, you know, she's doing so much within the industry. So I actually joined as her EA initially. So I worked really closely with Pip, kind of helping to get her organized and doing the stuff that she does best. And then once I was with the BFA, moved into kind of different marketing and ops roles. And then obviously the pandemic happened. So
Yeah. I think it impacted everybody in some way or another, didn't it? But your time at the BFA, the British Franchise Association, then tell me a bit more about, in your opinion, what the BFA does and why it exists, really, if you don't mind.
yeah, so I think the BFA really, it's, you know, the guys that work there, their passion that is unwavering is doing franchising right. So it's all about ethical franchising. So franchising, as I'm sure a lot of people will know, isn't currently legislated, which gives a lot of freedom, which is great. But there are some people that take advantage of not necessarily having those rules. And so the BFA really is in place to make sure that franchisors and franchisees are protected. So sort of supporting the industry to grow in the right way, so grow ethically, and then supporting new brands and new franchisees into the industry, so people that don't know about what an amazing opportunity it is.
Yeah, that's good. So how were you kind of involved in that then? So you said you started off as an EA there, but I know you kind of moved through into a couple of different roles within the company.
So like I said, it was the pandemic hit when I'd been there for only about 6 months. So initially kind of my role was supporting PIP and then moving more into the operations side of the BFA. But then after just a few months, the pandemic hit. And so we all ended up doing a bit of everything. So some of our team were furloughed for a while throughout the pandemic, kind of the main bit. And so we all just took on all of the roles really. So it was an insanely busy time. So I think that was the one time that kind of, I think franchisors really did want to come together and hear what other people were doing, because none of us had been through any of that before, right? So no one could refer to what they had done when this happened before. So it was really just about showing all of the members that we were kind of there and we were there to help them. So it was having an awful lot of conversations with brands throughout the industry, which again was amazing because it was that opportunity to connect with so many people.
Yeah. So what did you kind of learn from speaking to so many different franchisors? Because at the BFA, like you say, you're in contact with hundreds of franchisors, so you've got a great opportunity to get around and speak to all of them. I'm just wondering, is there something that you kind of learned, or were there any trends that you saw?
So I think the main thing that I learned from kind of the business aspect, I think, was just how crucial it is to be open with people, because a lot of the time, as whether you're a business leader or just an adult, I've learned that actually a lot of it, you're winging it, aren't you? Yeah. you're giving it, you're seeing what works. Yes, you might base it on kind of experience and knowledge, but a lot of the time you're testing it and seeing how it goes, aren't you? And so I think actually building those connections with other people so that you can learn from each other is probably the best and most important thing you can do, really. That was what I found anyway. Like all of the people that kind of came forward to take part in sort of different activities of networking and support, I think they really valued it at the time. That was the feedback that we got anyway. And it was also the kind of main trend, I think, was seeing people able to, that word that I don't want to say, but I can't think of another word to say, pivot. So the people that were able to kind of adapt their business, or even just how they did it, and having that kind of agile mentality, that things are always changing, and actually keep that as part of your business plan. Like your business plan should be something that's worked on and looked at all the time. And it's always changing.
Yeah. I think a lot of people were forced into making changes, and others realized it was an opportunity to change as well, didn't they? Especially if you can't deliver the main thing you're going to deliver, whatever that may be, service or product. It opens up other opportunities. So you obviously well, I say obviously, I know because we've spoken a few times before, but you you did some work on the PR side for the British Franchise Association. So I'm wondering if you saw any particular stories that stick out in your mind.
So I think the most kind of probably compelling stories, I guess, again, were from the franchisees really, who had kind of overcome immense challenges. So one of the things that I was responsible for was the filming and running of the awards, the BFA awards last year. And that was an incredible opportunity to speak with people. There was one franchisee who had lost the ability to walk, and she regained that through sort of rehab and a lot of mental strength, and then has gone on to win several business awards and build her business. And really, a lot of them cited franchising as the thing that got them through.
Oh, wow.
Because they had that support, they had those things in place that had they not had that outside encouragement and support to, you know, access to different information, to resources, you know, like PPE throughout the pandemic, had they not been able to access all of that, which they were through the power of their franchise, they probably wouldn't have been there. So yeah, that was incredible, really.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? That there's so many of those types of stories across the whole industry, and
Yeah,
yeah, you, I think before you work within franchising, you kind of hear those stories to some degree, but you don't really take in what's behind them or what's happening. But as soon as you're in the franchising industry, you constantly hear those stories. There's so many of them, from people being
yeah,
homeless to finding, you know, an opportunity within franchising, as you say,
absolutely.
personal challenges, whatever they may be. A lot of people seem to overcome that by having their own business, but they're unable to do it through franchising because they've got more support around them. And I think, yeah, it's really,
Yeah,
really good to see. Really interesting.
yeah,
So
it's
I think that's the
incredible.
perk of being in the BFA. I would imagine working there.
Yeah, there's eyes everywhere. So yeah, it was quite nice. And actually, although all of those stories are so special and they're all unique, in the franchise industry, they're almost actually not that rare,
Yeah,
because I think franchising gives them so, you know, gives people so many opportunities to do that, that those stories on their own are amazing and they're unique and nothing takes away from that. But actually within the industry of franchising, there's quite a few of them, quite a
yeah,
few of those like amazing stories, really.
yeah, definitely. Excellent. So so after the BFA, then where did your career take you?
So, whilst I was at the BFA, I actually began to, or just before that, I started doing my training to do mental health first aid.
Okay.
So, I have always had an interest in the world of mental health. So, both my parents have always worked in mental health. And so I kind of rebelled and went into business and marketing away from the field of sort of mental health and healthcare. But actually, I think throughout, you know, the chats that we've had even today, reflecting on it, the draw for me has always been people.
Yeah.
You know, whatever job it's been, whatever industry it's been that connection with people. So I did the mental health first aid course myself because I wanted to just develop my knowledge and my understanding. And I loved the course so much that I decided actually to take that on and become a trainer. So that's brought me to that now, really. So that's what I do. I deliver mental health first aid training.
Fantastic. So it's obviously a very um, prevalent topic at the moment, mental health, and you see lots of people talking about it, especially on social media.
Mm,
And I don't think everybody fully understands or knows what it is in in its entirety, you know, because
yeah,
it's kind of a new concept, I guess, to people, isn't it? That it's very clear when you break an arm, you know, you've got to look after that by going to a
yeah,
doctor, right? But if somebody's struggling mentally, people don't really understand what that is, the symptoms of it, and how to fix it. So could
yeah.
you? This is helping me as well. If give me an idea of what actually is mental health, how would you describe it?
So mental health, I think even so the World Health Organization only sort of 6 years ago, it used their definition of mental health used to be the presence of a mental health condition or not.
Yeah,
So their own definition, you know, from the WHO used to be whether you were ill or whether you weren't. But now it's very much evolved to include well-being, to include your outlook on the future, how integrated you are with friends and community. So it's very much more encompassing. So I think if you think of your physical health, so how you felt this morning, how you felt last week, how you felt a year ago, they're probably all quite different, aren't they? You know, physically, physical health, and your
Yeah.
mental health is exactly the same. So my kind of main thing, I think, in society nowadays, we're always told to be happy and to be positive. But actually, I think for me, the end goal isn't being happy all the time, because that's weird, really, isn't it? Like, you're not going to be happy all the time. That's I would say that's not healthy. So to me, mental health is being able to cope with the daily stresses of life and cope with the emotions that you've got. Like, some things are going to make you sad. If you lose someone, it's natural and it's healthy to be sad, because that's your body's natural response. You know, if you were still happy, your body's and your mind is probably not actually processing that. So to me, mental health is all about coping with kind of the daily stresses of life and managing and feeling whatever emotions you've got at the time.
Yeah, and I think that's probably an important skill set as a business owner to have, isn't it? Or a toolbox of kind of solutions to help you overcome those challenges, because any business you start from day one, you are going to face some form of challenge. And looking at my personal experience, you know, I feel like I've had a fairly good start. I've got some good mentors around me, and, you know, businesses come in. I've not had to go and chase anything too much, but still lots of stress, lots of decisions to make. And I think those decisions are the things that will ultimately bring you stress at some point. Now, I like it. I like having those choices, but it doesn't mean it's easy. And I think you're right. It's healthy and normal to have those things in your life.
Exactly. Like, I think even good stresses, you know, planning a wedding, planning a holiday, that's, you know, what we would deem as good stress, but it's still stressful. That still causes your body to have a physical response. So I think it's just all about how you can manage those to keep some sort of level. And, you know, that level is going to be different to each person. But absolutely, when you're a new business owner, your thoughts are fluctuating all the time. Like, if you look at kind of, one of the things we look at is cognitive distortions. So that's something that everyone will have had probably already this week, and it's you know, only Monday, the day that we're recording this. So you will have probably already had them. So a cognitive distortion is basically thinking that is inaccurate or illogical. So something might happen and you might think, oh God, I bet everyone hates me. And you've got no evidence to back that up. But your brain thinks like that, and your thought triggers a physical response in your body, like a release of hormones, and that then causes you to behave and react in a certain way, which can spiral. And as a business owner, you absolutely have that. Like, we all have sort of imposter syndrome, don't we? So as a franchisor, as a franchisee, you take on a new venture, you make these decisions, and you have that element of self-doubt. So one thing I have been working with for a few franchisors is actually incorporating mental health first aid training into their franchisees' initial training.
Okay.
So that initial bit of training, they will join one of my courses within, say, the first 6 months of starting their business, so that they can learn how to kind of manage their own emotions and their own stresses and spot any kind of symptoms. But also, if they are going to employ staff, they're also in a fantastic position to do that, because whether you want to do it from a moral aspect of supporting your network or your employees or yourself to feel better, or whether you want to do it from a business sense, mental health is so impactful. Like, it costs the UK over 3 billion a year, mental health, you know, sick days, and supporting people. So whether you want to do it from a moral aspect or from a business aspect, it's worth doing.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. But I expect there are people out there that are, you know, leaders of businesses who will look at it very much from a statistics-based approach, you know, rather than they're actually caring about the staff so much. They will be looking at it and going, if I can reduce the sick days by X amount per year, I can get X amount X amount of output, which then leads to X amount more profit, right? And I guess it makes sense. Like, I might, you know, if that's the main driver for them, why not look at it like that? And the byproduct is a better healthy, I don't know if that's a proper term, but
yeah, mentally healthy
mentally fit,
workplace. Yeah,
network or team or employee or
yeah,
staff. So yeah,
yeah,
I
that's the
hadn't thought
thing.
about that before, and it's really interesting. And I wanted to go to mention something else that you kind of made me think about as well, and that's how our bodies or our minds kind of protect ourselves, and that's what imposter syndrome is, right? Where we're like,
Yeah,
well, if I just prepare him now that it's going to be a failure, that keeps him in this nice safe zone and not going out and taking too many risks. And it's
yeah.
quite difficult for a lot of people to get out of that comfort zone, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it's all about challenging those thoughts, I think, and knowing how to challenge them.
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting. So um for for your training then, so you're mainly working with franchises and franchisors or franchisees, what's kind of
Yeah.
your your core clientele?
So a mixture really. I would say the main is franchise brands, because I think I kind of combine my knowledge of the mental health um, field and also franchising, because it has got so many sort of nuances that people from outside of the industry don't necessarily know about. So I think for me, that enables me to be able to tweak and tailor some of the content so that it's really effective, basically, for franchise brands. So often it's franchisors. So it's mental health first aid training is all about developing someone's knowledge, skills and confidence in the field of mental health. So a lot of people, if they aren't asking people if they're okay and how they're feeling, the majority of the time it's not because they don't care, it's just because they don't know how to answer if someone says no, they're not.
Yeah,
So it may well be that you could ask someone, and generally, it's a British cultural thing. As soon as someone asks you how you are, you say you're fine, even though you might be, feeling terrible inside. But I think a lot of the time people are scared of someone being honest and saying, no, I'm not, because they just don't have the skill set or confidence and knowledge of how to support someone.
yeah,
So the mental health first aid training is really all about building that skill set. So like you said, you've got that toolkit of resources to support yourself and other people around you. And franchisors, their role has massively changed and evolved throughout the pandemic, largely. So they're not just there to support the business, but they're there to support the franchisee as a person, because like we were just talking about from a business aspect, if they are feeling sort of optimum well-being, they are going to be more productive, more positive outlook, have that kind of level of confidence and maybe that clearer mind to make business decisions. So actually it helps the franchise in that aspect as well. So it's really supporting franchisors to be able to best support their franchisees.
yeah. It's good. And it's interesting because I've realized, you saying, asking the question about how are you doing, and the automatic response is I'm fine.
Mm.
I found a lot through lockdown. I kind of changed how I responded to that question. And what I would
Mhm.
say is living the dream, right? To pretty much everybody. But what I did was I just use a different tone. So then they knew how I was just by saying, oh, absolutely living the dream, aren't I? And they knew that
Yeah,
I was then having a rough week or something bad was going on. Or, if
yeah,
I've got a big smile and I say it enthusiastically, slightly different. So
yeah.
are they the kind of tools that you sort of teach people how to leverage, or is that something completely different?
Well, yeah, no, I think that's a really useful skill to have. And I think it's generally it's making people more comfortable to be able to do that,
Yeah,
because there you've said that you made kind of a conscious effort to share with people, whether it's through the words you use or the tone you use. You've made a conscious effort to share with people how you're really feeling. But a lot of people don't necessarily still have the confidence to do that, and there's an awful lot of stigma around the conversation of mental health still. So it's definitely getting better. Like you said, there's a lot more talk about it over social media. It's become much more of a prevalent conversation in business as well. But where it is that hidden thing, like you said at the start of our chat, that you can see a broken arm, but you can't necessarily see if someone's not feeling well, if they are suffering. And so that can be hard for a lot of people, especially when it, you know, someone might be off for a while and it's technically costing them money, but they can't see it. That can be quite hard. So there's still an awful lot of stigma.
So what do you think a business can do, or a franchise network could do, to kind of change the culture so that people are more comfortable to say, you know, to ask each other these questions? And I appreciate some of this might be in your training, so don't feel free not to go into all of the detail. But
firstly, I would say do the training. So the first one, in all seriousness, whether you do it with me, whether you do it with someone else, I think is to arm yourselves as the kind of the people at the top, the business leaders, or, you know, the franchise support team. I think is to arm yourself with that knowledge and that confidence to have those conversations, and then really just to make it a part of the everyday. So lead by example, you know, share if you're having a struggle. I appreciate that some business leaders perhaps want to keep certain boundaries, and, you know, you never should share something you're not comfortable to share. But I think the first step is just to show your network, show your organization that actually you're there and you're comfortable to talk about it, and that it is a safe workplace, you know, mentally healthy workplace. So do that by having those conversations, by doing the training so that people are armed, by implementing a well-being policy. So most businesses will have a health and safety policy, you know, all sorts of policies, but a well-being policy is essential, really, so that people know kind of the processes and the support that's out there, and what a business is doing to make sure their team are safe, really.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Very good. So I'm going to move on now to kind of my last three questions, and I'm interested to find out, the first one, it's always my favorite one to ask, but have you got any weird, strange, or interesting stories from your career that you're happy to share? And I'm thinking there must be something in the train station museum.
Oh, I'm sure there is, but I've probably blocked them out, I think so. When I first started my career in franchising, I worked with Maria Hartnell. So Maria's worked as franchise manager for a number of businesses, and we worked very closely together. And she always used to joke about the fact that one day she was going to write a book called "It Shouldn't Happen to a Franchise Manager." So within that, there would be just little anecdotes, essentially. So as we would work together, we would kind of, in our minds, add to these stories. And it was essentially about the fact that, where I was talking then about that, the role of a franchisor has evolved so much, and it's not just about business. So Maria used to get calls from people. I remember once we were having our annual conference, and she got a call from one of the franchisees who was really quite flustered and needed her help. And he didn't know how to empty the plug in his bath.
Right. Okay.
So
I mean, what is that part of it? Job duties is to unplug sinks?
Apparently so. So he didn't know how to change the to drain the bath. So perhaps not. So
is this at a work site, or is this at their residential?
No, it was at a hotel. So we were at the Safety conference, and one franchisee called to ask how to drain the bath. And I think I've always just loved that, because that just shows just how much support a franchise manager perhaps can give to their network.
Yeah, there must be a lot of reliance on the franchise manager, or a lot of confidence that they can solve anything, right? Anything. If you're going to them with that. I wonder what else they've stopped themselves from asking, because
well, you wonder, don't you? Yeah. So that's always made me laugh.
That's amazing. That is, and absolutely crazy as well. Oh man, but yeah, good stuff, good story, thank you. And the next one is, what proud or inspiring moments have you had within your career, or what's been the most proud or inspiring moment?
Um, so I've had. Can I give you a few, or is that braggy?
God, it's bragging, but no, go for
It's bragging.
it.
I'll give you a few. Why not? We should all brag a bit more. So I that the first job I had, where we were running this all male network, they a few people actually had some bets on how long we would last. Me straight out of uni and not knowing
Oh, okay.
franchising. And then within a few months, one of the franchisees was sending me like CDs of his son's music, and with like a handwritten note of how pleased he was to have us as part of the team. So that for me was a real proud
Oh, that's
moment.
really cool.
I had really kind of worked hard to build that rapport and build that confidence with him. So that was great. Standing on stage at the Empowering Women in Business conference for the
Yeah.
BFA. So last year I delivered a talk on mental health first aid. And I remember attending the event before I even worked for the BFA and absolutely loving it. Like, I thought it was a really inspiring, like, motivational event. I had pages of notes. So to then be asked to speak there about a topic I'm so passionate about felt incredible.
Yeah, awesome.
And then I think the final one is probably just getting the feedback after our training sessions. So we always ask people to fill in like a sort of quick survey so that we can improve, how we're doing the training. And getting that feedback is always feels really great, because people will often talk about how they feel kind of empowered to ask others if they need any help and how to support them. So knowing that they're then able to make a difference to other people is amazing.
Yeah, good stuff. I like it. I liked all of those, definitely. And I can imagine, yeah, the one being on stage must be fairly nerve-wracking to some degree, but yeah, when you look back on it, good effort for getting up there in front of everybody and delivering a speech on something you're passionate about, because that's giving back in multiple different ways, isn't it? So yeah, I think you should be proud of all of those. It's great.
Thanks.
So final question is, now using your experience of working within a franchisor and seeing, what it's like for franchisees, the challenges they're facing, as well as working within the British Franchise Association as well, and all the experience you've gained there, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give to somebody who's about to invest in a franchise, whatever brand it's with?
That is a good question. So if they're about to, so if they signed on the dotted line.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay, so I think I would say, well, before that, I'll take it back actually. Before that, I think I would say the best thing that a franchisee could do to kind of prepare is to speak to the people that are already doing it. Because as much as your franchisor is there to talk to it and get, a wealth of knowledge from, the people that are doing it, that are there on the ground, I think a wealth of knowledge. So I think for me, the biggest tip would be to speak to the people that are already doing it, whether it's within your brand that you're wanting to go into or just other franchisees. So finding out kind of what it entails and really knowing what it means to be a franchisee, and then specifically to be a franchisee of that brand.
Yeah, I think that goes back to what we were saying earlier, actually, is kind of surrounding yourself by people that have done it already, and you start to feel more comfortable with the decision, don't you? Right. And understand what the risks are, what the challenges are, and some of those skills to overcome them, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. Like, being as part of a franchise is amazing because generally they've already made the mistakes, for you to learn from. And so actually, if you can then go to a franchisee who's probably made even more, after that, so they've made their own, that's great. It's just so much to learn from one another. So yeah, it's that openness and the connection again, I think.
Perfect. So put the pen down and go and speak to some more people, maybe.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
But I think that's important, actually, is I don't think you should feel rushed into making signing a piece of paper, should you, until you're absolutely comfortable and ready. You're never going to over the risk element, you're always going to feel like there's a little bit of uncertainty. But I think
Yeah.
you need to do as much preparation as you feel you need to do before making that decision, right?
Yeah, that's it. And it's probably never going to feel like the perfect time.
No.
But if you want to do it, life is too short to not give it a go. So prepare as much as you can, and then just shut your eyes and do it.
Shut your eyes and do it. Love it. Jen, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you and getting to know you a bit better and understanding what you're doing now in more detail. So thank you for that. And yeah, have a good day.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ed. Bye.